The room felt smaller than it was, not because of the walls or the low amber lights or the quiet jazz humming from somewhere, unseen, but because Luca Moretti was standing across from her, watching her the way men, like him, watch the world, calm, assessing, as if nothing ever surprised him. Elena Carter wrapped her fingers around the stem of her glass, not to drink, but to give her hands something to do. They were trembling. She hated that he might notice. Of course he noticed. "Relax," Luca said softly. His voice was low, smooth, American with a trace of something darker underneath. Italy, maybe. Power, definitely. "You're safe here." That word, safe, made her laugh under her breath. It slipped out before she could stop it. His brow lifted slightly. "Something funny?" "No," Elena said quickly. "Just ironic." Luca didn't press her. He never rushed. That was what unsettled her most. Men who wanted. Things usually leaned in too fast. Their hunger showed in their hands, their eyes, their impatience. Luca just waited. The silence stretched, thick and intimate. She could hear her own breathing now, feel the heat of his presence without him touching her. "I've never been kissed," she said suddenly. The words landed between them like a dropped glass, sharp, fragile, irreversible. For the first time since she'd met him, Luca froze. Not visibly. Not in a way anyone else would catch. But Elena felt it. The air shifted. His gaze sharpened, darkened, then softened in a way that made her chest ache. "Never?" he asked. She shook her head, embarrassed now that the truth was out. "I don't know why I said that. You don't have to—" "I didn't say you were wrong to say it," he interrupted gently. She looked up. Luca had stepped closer, not into her space, not yet, just enough that she could smell him. Clean, masculine, something expensive and dangerous underneath. His hand stayed at his sides, relaxed, controlled. "How old are you, Elena?" he asked. 26. "And no one ever kissed you," he repeated slowly, like he was tasting the idea. "No one I wanted to," she said, then added quieter. "No one I trusted." That did something to him. She saw it in his jaw tightening, in the way his fingers curled once before relaxing again. Luca Moretti, a man whispered about in headlines and rumors, a man who owned fear the way others owned watches, stood perfectly still in front of her. "You should have told me sooner," he said. Her heart dropped. "I'm sorry." He shook his head. "Not sorry, informed." "Informed of what?" "That if I touch you," he said, his voice dropping, "it won't be casual." Her breath caught. He stepped closer now, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to look at him. Close enough that she could feel the heat of his body, the restraint in every inch of him. But still, he didn't touch her. "I don't take firsts lightly," Luca continued, "especially not ones that matter." Elena swallowed. "You talk like a man who takes a lot." A corner of his mouth curved, not a smile, something sharper. "I do." "Then why are you holding back?" His eyes locked onto hers, intense and unblinking. "Because I can tell you're not afraid of being kissed," he said. "You're afraid of what comes after." Her chest tightened. He was right. Painfully right. "And what comes after?" she whispered. "Attachment," Luca said. "Curiosity. Wanting more." She felt dizzy. "And that's bad?" "For men like me," he murmured, "it's dangerous." He lifted his hand slowly, deliberately, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His knuckles brushed a loose strand of hair near her cheek, barely there. The lightest contact. Electricity surged through her like a live wire, her lips parted without permission. Luca noticed. He leaned in, his mouth hovering just inches from hers. She could feel his breath now, warm, against her skin. Her whole body leaned toward him instinctively. Then he stopped. Not a tease, not a game, a decision. "Not tonight," he said softly. Her heart thudded painfully. "Why?" "Because if I kiss you," Luca whispered, his forehead almost touching hers, I won't stop at one. He stepped back, putting distance between them like it cost him something. But I promise you this, he added, eyes dark and unwavering. When we start, we'll start slow. And somehow Elena knew. Slow would be the most dangerous thing of all. Elena didn't learn Luca Moretti's name from him. She learned it from the way the room reacted when he stood. The subtle shift came first. The bartender straightening, the laughter dimming, the men near the far wall lowering their voices as if volume itself had become dangerous. It was instinctive, automatic, like prey recognizing a predator long before it saw teeth. Luca hadn't changed. He moved with the same calm precision, buttoning his jacket, slipping his watch back into place. But suddenly, everything else moved around him. Elena noticed because she was still watching him. Is something wrong? She asked quietly. Luca glanced at her, then at the room, and exhaled through his nose. I was hoping you wouldn't notice. Her stomach tightened. Notice what? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached past her, signaling the bartender with 2 fingers. The man nodded immediately, too immediately, and began preparing a drink. Elena frowned. I didn't order anything. Luca's gaze stayed on her. I know. That should have unsettled her more than it did. The glass appeared in front of her seconds later. Crystal, heavy, expensive. The liquid inside was amber, catching the light like honey and fire. She stared at it. What is this? Old-fashioned, Luca said. No cherry, less sugar, extra orange peel. Her breath caught. That's exactly how I like it. He tilted his head slightly, studying her reaction. You hesitated when you looked at the menu. Your eyes went to the bourbon section. Twice. Her heart began to race. You noticed that? I notice things. Before she could respond, a woman approached the table. Tall, impeccably dressed. Her red lipstick was sharp enough to cut. Luca, the woman said, voice smooth but tense. We need to talk. Luca didn't look at her. Not now. It's urgent. Then it should have been handled without interrupting me. The woman's eyes flicked to Elena, assessing, dismissive, then curious. I didn't realize you were occupied. I am, Luca said flatly. The word settled over Elena like a claim. The woman stiffened. You know who he is, right? She said to Elena, a warning laced beneath politeness. Elena opened her mouth. Luca closed the distance between himself and the woman by one deliberate step. That's enough, he said quietly. The woman swallowed. Of course. She left without another word. Elena stared after her, pulse roaring in her ears. Who was that? Someone who forgets her place, Luca replied. And what is your place? Elena asked before she could stop herself. He finally looked at her fully then. No softness now. No teasing restraint. Just truth. I run this city's underworld, he said calmly. I decide who profits, who disappears, and who lives long enough to regret crossing me. Her breath hitched. Fear flared, hot and real. You're a mafia boss, she whispered. Yes. Too late, her mind supplied. Too late to pretend this was just a night. Too late to pretend he was just a man. She pushed her chair back slightly. Not standing, not running, just space. Luca noticed. He always noticed. Are you afraid? He asked. Yes, she said honestly. He nodded once. Good. Fear keeps you alive. And yet, she added, her voice shaking despite herself, you haven't scared me since we started talking. His eyes darkened. That's because I didn't want to. Why? Because, he said slowly, the moment I decided I wanted you here, I stopped being careless. Her chest tightened. You wanted me before you even spoke to me. He didn't deny it. You ordered my drink, she said, realization hitting her hard. Before I said a word. Yes. Why? Luca leaned in just enough that his voice became hers alone. Because I knew you'd sit down, he murmured. And because when you did, I wanted you to feel seen. Her fear didn't disappear. But curiosity, dangerous, aching curiosity, wrapped around it. And Elena realized something terrifying. She wasn't sitting with him by accident. She never had been. Elena should have stood up. Every instinct she'd ever trusted told her to leave, to thank him politely, to walk straight out the door, to never look back at the man who ruled the city's shadows like a god with blood on his hands. Instead, she wrapped both hands around the glass he'd ordered for her and stayed. Luca noticed that too. "You're still here," he said, his voice unreadable. "So are you," she replied, then winced. "Sorry, that sounded braver than I feel." A flicker of something crossed his face. Amusement, maybe, or respect. "Fear doesn't mean weakness," Luca said. "It means awareness." "Is that what you tell the people who work for you?" she asked. "No," he said calmly. "They don't get explanations." She took a sip of the drink. It burned, smooth and slow, warming her chest. "Then why am I getting them?" Luca leaned back slightly, giving her space again. "Always control, always deliberate." "Because you didn't come looking for me," he said, "and you didn't flinch when you learned who I am." "I flinched," she corrected. "I just didn't run." "Exactly." The word landed heavier than she expected. Silence stretched between them, not awkward, charged. She became acutely aware of her body, the way her knees angled toward him, the way her pulse reacted every time he shifted. "I don't belong in your world," Elena said finally. "No," Luca agreed. "You don't." Her throat tightened. "Then why am I here?" He studied her for a long moment, his gaze slow, almost intimate. "Because my world doesn't touch things like you often," he said, "and when it does, it changes them." Her fingers curled around the glass. "That sounds like a warning." "It is." "Then give me rules," she said suddenly. "If I'm sitting with the devil, I want to know the terms." That made him smile, not softly, not kindly, but honestly. "Rules," Luca repeated. "All right." He leaned forward, forearms resting on the table. The distance between them shrank again, deliberate and controlled. "Rule 1, he said. "You don't lie to me, ever." She nodded. "I can do that." "Rule 2, he continued. "If you want to leave, you say it. No games, no pretending you're—" "Fine." Her heart pounded. "And you'll let me?" "Yes." That surprised her. "No chasing? No men at the door?" "If you choose to walk away," Luca said evenly, "it means I failed to make you stay." Something in his tone made her chest ache. "And rule 3, she asked. His eyes darkened. "You don't touch me unless I ask." Her breath caught. "That's a rule for me. Or for you." "For both of us," he said. She laughed nervously. "You're afraid of being touched?" Luca's jaw tightened, just slightly. "I'm afraid of what I do when I'm not careful." The honesty in that admission sent a shiver through her. She hesitated, then asked the question burning in her chest. "If I broke that rule, what would happen?" His gaze dropped to her mouth. Just for a second. Long enough for her to feel it everywhere. "Then I'd stop pretending I'm patient," he said quietly. Heat pooled low in her stomach. She shifted in her chair, suddenly aware of how close he was again. "Luca," she whispered without thinking. The way he stilled at the sound of his name, on her lips, felt dangerous. "Yes, Elena? What if I want you to ask?" For the first time, he lost his perfect stillness. He rose from his chair, slowly, deliberately, until he stood right in front of her. She had to tilt her head back to look at him now. His presence wrapped around her, heavy and intoxicating. "I don't ask for things I can't walk away from," he said softly. He lifted his hand, stopping just short of her cheek, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his skin, close enough that her body leaned toward him without permission. Then he lowered it, not yet. "You're curious," Luca murmured, "and curiosity is how men like me ruin women like you." Her voice trembled. "Then why are you still here?" He bent closer, his mouth hovering just beside her ear. "Because you're still breathing," he whispered. "And because you haven't told me to stop." Her heart slammed against her ribs, and for the first time, Elena wondered if slow was just another word for inevitable. Elena didn't remember standing. One moment she was seated, her pulse still racing from his whisper. And the next, she was on her feet, close enough that the table no longer existed between them. The world had narrowed to the space between her body and Luca's. It felt reckless, unplanned, honest. "Luca," she said again, quieter this time. Not a question, not a challenge, a pull. His eyes dropped to her lips before he caught himself. The control it took to stop was visible. Now, etched into the tight line of his jaw, the slow rise of his chest as he drew a measured breath. "You should sit down," he said. She didn't. Instead, she stepped closer. The distance between them vanished, and suddenly there was nowhere for her curiosity to go but forward. She could feel him now. Heat, restraint, danger held on a leash far too tight. "I'm not afraid," she said, though her voice shook. Luca's hand lifted instantly, palm open, hovering near her waist without touching. A silent question, a last chance. She didn't move away. His fingers settled lightly at her side, barely there, but the contact sent a rush through her so sharp it stole her breath. It wasn't possessive. It wasn't rough. It was careful. "You don't get to decide that," he said softly. "Not yet." "Why?" she whispered. "Why does it feel like you're always stopping right before—" "Because stopping is the only thing keeping this clean," he interrupted. Her heart pounded. "Clean?" "Yes," he said, leaning in just slightly. "Because once I cross that line, I don't get to uncross it." She could see the conflict in his eyes now. Dark, stormy, dangerously close to breaking. He wasn't playing with her. That truth hit her harder than fear ever could. "I want to know what it's like," she said. "Just a kiss." His thumb flexed once against her side, betraying him. Elena leaned in. Slowly, carefully, giving him time to stop her. He didn't. Their breaths mingled. She could feel the warmth of his mouth, so close it made her dizzy. Her lips parted instinctively, her body responding before her mind could catch up. This was it. This was the moment. Then, "Luca!" The voice cut through the air like a blade. He stilled instantly, his body shifting between Elena and the sound. His hand dropped from her waist, replaced by distance so abrupt it left her cold. A man stood several feet away, dressed in black, his posture rigid with urgency. "We need you. Now." Luca didn't turn around. His eyes stayed on Elena, searching her face like he was memorizing it. "Give me a minute," he said. The man hesitated. "It can't wait." Something dangerous flickered across Luca's expression. He exhaled slowly, then nodded. "Once. I'll be right back," he said to Elena, his voice low again. Controlled again. She nodded, still breathless. "Okay." But before he stepped away, he leaned in, just enough for his mouth to brush the shell of her ear. His voice dropped to a whisper meant only for her. "You feel it," he said. "That pull." "Yes," she breathed. His lips hovered there for a heartbeat too long. Then he whispered the words that shattered and steadied her all at once. "You're not ready," Luca said. "But I am." He stepped back, turned, and walked away without looking over his shoulder. Elena stood frozen in place, her lips still tingling from a kiss that hadn't happened. Her heart aching with a confusion she didn't know how to name. All she knew was this. Almost had never felt so dangerous. Elena stood where Luca had left her long after he disappeared into the shadows of the room. Her body still remembered him. His nearness, the almost touch, the promise hanging in the air, like unfinished music. Every sensible thought screamed at her to leave, to walk out while she still could, to choose safety over curiosity. She didn't. Instead, she sat back down. The chair felt colder now, the room louder, ordinary, and yet nothing about her felt the same. Her lips tingled as if they'd been kissed anyway, her pulse refusing to slow. You're not ready. The words echoed in her head, frustrating and intoxicating all at once.
Then when? She murmured to herself.
Minutes passed. Maybe more. She wasn't sure. Time bent strangely when Luca Moretti was involved. She was halfway through convincing herself to stand up and leave when she felt it. That shift again. The subtle tightening of the room. The quiet awareness that something dangerous had returned. She looked up. Luca was walking toward her. His jacket was off now, sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with tension. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes locked onto hers the second he saw she was still. There. He stopped in front of her. You didn't leave. It wasn't an accusation. It was surprise. No, she said simply. Why? Elena stood this time. Slowly, deliberately. Not because she was nervous, but because she wanted to meet him on equal ground. The decision felt bold, terrifying, right. Because I don't like being told what I'm ready for, she said. Especially by someone who doesn't know me. Luca's gaze sharpened. You think I don't? I think you assume things, she replied, just like everyone else. That earned her a reaction, a quiet, low laugh that vibrated through his chest. Careful, he warned. You're pushing. Good, she said. I wanted to see if you'd push back. She stepped closer. This time it was her who closed the distance. Luca didn't move, didn't retreat. But she felt it. The way his body reacted, the way control tightened around him like armor. You're making a choice, he said. So are you, she replied. She lifted her hand slowly, giving him time to stop her. When he didn't, she rested her fingers lightly against his chest. His heart was steady beneath her palm, but the tension in his muscles told another story. The contact sent a thrill through her, not power, connection. Luca looked down at her hand, then back into her eyes. His voice dropped. If you keep doing that, I won't be responsible for what happens next. Elena swallowed. I'm not asking you to lose control. What are you asking for? She took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle in her chest. This wasn't impulse anymore. This was intention. I'm asking you to stop deciding for me, she said softly. His jaw tightened. And if I do, then whatever happens, she whispered, is something I chose too. The silence between them stretched, heavy and intimate. Luca's hand lifted, slow, careful, and hovered just inches from her face. He still didn't touch her. You have no idea what you're stepping into, he said. Then don't pull me, Elena replied. Walk away. He didn't. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. She could feel his breath now, warm and controlled, brushing against her skin. The moment balanced on a razor's edge. She looked up at him, eyes steady despite the storm inside her, and asked the question that had been burning in her chest since the beginning. What happens? Elena whispered. If I ask you to kiss me? Luca's eyes darkened instantly, and for the first time, he didn't answer right away. Luca didn't answer her question right away. He just looked at her. Really looked at her. Like he was deciding whether the truth would scare her away or pull her closer. His silence stretched, deliberate and heavy, until Elena felt every second of it in her chest. Slow, he said at last, quietly. Doesn't mean gentle. Her breath caught. It means intentional, he continued. It means I don't take what I want just because I can. His hand lowered but still didn't touch her. Not yet. It hovered between them, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. For a man like me, Luca went on, slow is restraint, control. Waking up every day choosing not to cross a line I know I could erase in a second. Elena swallowed. That sounds exhausting. A corner of his mouth curved faintly. It is. Then why do it? Because fast is easy, he said. Fast is instinct. Slow is dangerous. Her pulse raced. Dangerous how? Because it gives you time to care, Luca said. Time to imagine. Time to want things you can't. Protect. His eyes dropped briefly, to her mouth, to the place where her breath still trembled, then lifted again. When I go slow, he said, I start memorizing the way someone looks at me. The way they say, my name, the way their hands shake when they lie. I don't lie, Elena said softly. I know, he replied without hesitation. That certainty sent a shiver through her. You asked what happens if you ask me to kiss you, Luca continued. Here's the truth. He stepped closer, closing the space she'd claimed earlier. This time, she didn't retreat. Her body recognized the moment before her mind could argue. If you ask, he said, voice low, intimate, I'll say yes. Not because you're curious, but because you're choosing. Her chest tightened. And then I'll kiss you like it matters, he said. And once I do, I won't pretend it doesn't. The room felt too warm, too small. Elena's voice was barely more than a breath. You make it sound like a warning. It is. Then why do you look like you want me to ask anyway? Luca's jaw flexed. Because wanting isn't the problem, he said. Acting without consequence is. She studied him. This powerful, dangerous man standing inches from her, holding himself back like it cost him something real. What if I want the consequences? She asked. That did it. Something in his expression shifted. Not hunger, not softness, but gravity. As if the game had ended and something honest had taken its place. You don't yet, he said gently. But you will. His hand moved then, slow, deliberate, until his fingers brushed against hers. Just her knuckles, barely a touch. The contact was so light it could have been accidental. It wasn't. Electricity shot up her arm, sharp and sudden, her breath catching despite herself. Luca felt it too. He stilled instantly, his fingers hovering there like he was testing fire. That, he murmured, eyes darkening, is slow. Elena's heart thundered. She didn't pull away. Neither did he. And in that small, dangerous contact, no kiss, no claim, she understood something terrifying and intoxicating all at once. Slow wasn't safer. Slow was how this would ruin them both. The room seemed smaller now, more intimate, every shadow and corner holding their quiet. Tension. Elena could feel him before she saw him fully. His presence always announced itself in subtle waves. The faint scent of his cologne, the barely there brush of air against her skin, the way the floorboards whispered under his steps. He stopped a mere foot away, close enough that the faintest movement could send them into each other, far enough that the rules, his rules, still held. Her hands rested on her lap, fingers lightly brushing her own knees, but she could feel them twitch, aching for contact. Breathe, Luca murmured, low and controlled. His voice was a whisper, but it vibrated through, her chest like a warning bell. She did, slowly. He stepped closer. The air between them pulsed. She could feel the heat radiating off his body, like gravity pulling her in. The smell of his hair, faint leather, and something else. Dangerous, intoxicating, filled her senses. You're testing me, he said quietly. I'm curious, she admitted. I want to know what it's like. What it's like, he repeated, voice rougher, is not something you can undo once you start. Her pulse quickened. Then don't stop me, she whispered. His hand lifted, hovering over hers. Not on hers yet. Just there, inches away, like he was teasing. Her with the possibility of fire. She leaned in slightly, careful, deliberate. The anticipation made every nerve in her body tighten. Breath mingled. Her lips tingled, aching for the ghost of a touch. He didn't move his hand. Not yet. But the brush of his sleeve against her wrist was enough to send shivers down her spine. Slow, he murmured. Slow is how you survive. Her lips parted. And if I don't want to survive? Luca's jaw tightened, his eyes darkening. He bent slightly, letting his breath ghost across her cheek. The subtle pressure of his presence, of his proximity, made her feel like she was standing on the edge of something she could never climb back from. "Then I suppose," he whispered, almost inaudibly, "we'll find out how far you can go." Elena's hand twitched involuntarily toward his. Just a fraction. Just enough that the air between them seemed to crackle. And in that instant, she saw it. The flicker of loss of control. Not fully, but enough. A tremor in his hands, the quickening of his chest, the slight tilt of his head forward. Half a second? Barely. Noticeable. But it burned into her awareness like a promise. He caught himself immediately, stepping back a fraction, regaining his composure with a predator's precision. "You feel it too," he said, voice low and steady again, though the heat in his gaze betrayed him. "Yes," she breathed, "I feel it." The quiet hung between them, tense and unbearable. Half a second had already shattered the careful world Luca had built around them. And Elena realized something terrifying. She didn't want him to regain control. Elena's chest pounded, loud enough she was sure Luca could hear it. She didn't think. She didn't pause. She leaned in. Slow. Deliberate. Intentional. Her lips parted, just slightly. Her eyes fluttering closed as if closing them would make the world shrink to only the space between them. Luca froze. Not in hesitation, but in recognition. Every muscle in his body coiled with tension, controlled, restrained, waiting. His hand hovered near her jaw, a whisper away from touching her. Her breath mingled with his. Time slowed. The only sound in the room was the beat of her heart, loud and desperate. And then bang! The noise shattered the fragile bubble around them. Glass rattled somewhere in the distance. A door slammed. Someone shouted. Elena jerked back instinctively, eyes wide. Fear spiked so fast her chest ached. Luca reacted before she even realized the danger. His arms wrapped around her, strong, protective. Not a gentle touch, not a caress, armor. Her back pressed to his chest as he turned her, shielding her from the room's doorway where shadows moved and voices shouted. "Stay down," he commanded, his voice low and urgent, dangerous. She pressed herself against him, aware of the heat of his body, the strength coiling around her. Her lips had almost touched his. Now she could feel his heartbeat, the rise and fall of his chest, the taut power in his arms. Gunshots echoed closer. Elena's nails dug into his jacket, anchoring herself to him. "Luca, what's happening?" she whispered, voice trembling. "Nothing you can fix," he growled, eyes scanning the room, body tense. Every instinct honed, every movement precise. He leaned over her, his face brushing her hair, his breath hot against her ear. "I've got you," he said, and the words were almost lost under the chaos. "I'm not letting anyone near you." Elena's heart raced, torn between fear, exhilaration, and the dizzying closeness of him. She had leaned in to kiss him moments ago, and now, pressed against his chest, she realized just how much danger and desire could coexist in the same heartbeat. A shadow moved too quickly near the door. A second gunshot cracked. Luca's arms tightened, instinctively, shifting to place himself between her and whatever threat lurked. Her lips had brushed the edge of his jacket, the warmth of his chest searing, and yet, still no. "Kiss." His jaw clenched. His eyes were dark, controlled, but the tension in his muscles betrayed the half-second of unrestrained desire he had already felt once before. Elena's pulse raced faster than ever. "Luca," I said, "stay close," he snapped softly, a predator with a promise hidden beneath the command. And in that instant, Elena understood fully. Not even gunfire, not even fear, could break the pull between them. But the danger wasn't gone, and Luca Moretti, the man who could stop time for anyone else, was now holding her body as a shield. Her lips were still unkissed, and yet closer than ever. The gunfire faded into echoes, replaced by a silence that felt heavier than any scream. Elena's knees were pressed to Luca's chest as he held her, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring, ready for the next threat. Her breath came in shallow bursts, heart hammering, not just from fear, but from the closeness, from the electricity that had been building between them since the first glance. "You're safe," he murmured, though his eyes scanned the room with lethal precision. "For now." Elena tried to pull back, to get some space, but his grip was firm, protective. Her hands rested against his chest, and she felt the rigid line of his muscles under her fingers. Every inch of him screamed danger and desire, and for a moment she wondered if that was what kept her rooted, in place. I didn't know it would be like this," she whispered. Her voice shook. "I didn't know your world." Luca's gaze hardened. "You don't, and you won't, unless you want to." She looked up at him, searching his face. I want to understand, even if it scares me." That made him pause. Elena had just admitted something most people wouldn't dare. She wanted to step into his darkness. "You have no idea what you're asking for," he said, his voice low, edged with both warning and something else, something softer, hidden beneath the predator he always was. "I do," she said. Her fingers traced the line of his jacket, almost as if testing the boundary between them. "Because if I don't," her words faltered, "then I'll always wonder." Luca's jaw tightened. "Curiosity is dangerous." "Then let it be dangerous," she challenged, voice trembling but firm. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, his hand lifted, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It was the first deliberate touch, not near a kiss, not even a caress, but enough to make her pulse race. She swallowed. You're different than I imagined." He exhaled, sharp and controlled. "I have to be. Otherwise this world, my world, swallows everything I care about." Her eyes widened as the truth of his words sank in. Danger wasn't just outside the room. It was woven into him, into his life, into every glance, every breath, every controlled move. "And yet," she whispered, leaning just a fraction closer, "you're still protecting me." He didn't answer with words. Instead, his hand brushed hers, light, deliberate, almost testing. Her fingers tingled where they touched, electricity that had nothing to do with the gunfire. Elena felt it, the weight of the man before her, the danger, the power, the forbidden intimacy. She realized that fear and desire were no longer separate. They were entwined. And then she heard it. The distant echo of voices, the faint shuffle of movement outside the room. "Luca!" she breathed, tense. "What's happening?" His eyes narrowed, sharp and lethal. He stepped in front of her fully now, shielding her body, with his own. The heat of him pressed against her, solid, unyielding, as if to say, "I am your armor, nothing passes." A shadow flitted past the window. A loud crash, glass shattering. Luca's hand moved, covering hers again, fingers brushing her knuckles in that same slow, deliberate contact that always set her pulse racing. "Stay behind me," he ordered softly, voice low, deadly calm. "Whatever comes next, I won't let it touch you." Elena's lips parted, her breath catching. Her body was pressed to his, her hair brushing his neck. She had leaned in to kiss him just moments before the violence. Now she was closer than ever, and still, unkissed. And in that closeness, the raw, terrifying truth of his world hit her fully. She wasn't just curious anymore. She was entangled. And with Luca Moretti, entanglement came with consequences. Some she wasn't sure she could survive. The danger outside had faded, leaving behind only the echo of adrenaline and the thick, unshakable tension that clung to the room. Elena's hand still rested against Luca's chest, trembling, not from fear this time, but from the closeness, the anticipation, the unspeakable pull between them. She could feel his heartbeat, beneath her fingers, steady, controlled, yet somehow betraying the storm inside him. He didn't move away, not even an inch. His eyes were fixed on hers, dark, intense, unblinking. "You shouldn't feel like this," Luca murmured almost to himself. "Feel what?" Elena whispered, her voice barely audible. This, he said, his gaze traveling from her lips back to her eyes. This tension, desire, curiosity. Elena swallowed, courage and longing warring inside her. I can't help it. He didn't reply with words. Instead, he lifted his hand, brushing her cheek lightly. Not a touch of ownership, just contact, gentle, electric, intentional. Her pulse spiked, her lips parted. She leaned in, testing the space between them. Luca held still. He didn't move closer, didn't pull away. He simply let her come to him. A silent agreement that this moment, this kiss, would not be casual. Slowly, carefully, she closed the distance. Her lips barely brushed his. Then in a heartbeat, everything shifted. Luca's hands moved, one to her waist, the other cradling her head with precision and reverence. He deepened the kiss, slow, deliberate, consuming. It was not a hungry, reckless kiss. It was measured, intentional, electric. Elena's breath caught, her knees weak, her body pressed fully into his. Every sense heightened. The world outside ceased to exist. The gunfire, the danger, the city itself, all irrelevant, only him. Only the taste of him. Only the feel of his hands anchoring her to this impossible, intoxicating reality. When he pulled back slightly, just enough to look into her eyes, Elena was breathless. Heart hammering, mind reeling. You understand now, he murmured, voice rough with barely controlled desire. Slow isn't gentle. Slow is consuming. I feel it, she whispered, lips still tingling, body aching from the intensity of the kiss. He pressed his forehead to hers. And now, you belong to me. The words didn't frighten her. They thrilled her, anchored her, claimed her in a way nothing else ever had. Before she could respond, a faint sound, a door creaking, footsteps, brought him immediately back to the world. He pulled her close again, body shielding hers as he scanned the room. The danger hadn't vanished. It had only paused. But the kiss, they both knew, had changed everything. You feel it too, don't you? He whispered against her hair, almost a growl. Elena nodded, unable to speak. She didn't want to. Words could ruin this. Luca's hand brushed hers again, a fleeting touch, a reminder. Slow was not over. And yet, for the first time, she understood the danger, and the desire was worth it. She had crossed the line, and so had he. Because once you kissed Luca Moretti, nothing could ever be the same. The city night was dark and unforgiving, streets slick with rain reflecting neon lights like fractured mirrors. Elena and Luca had stepped outside the safety of the room, but the tension hadn't. Lifted, it had sharpened. She walked beside him, feeling the lingering heat of their last kiss in every nerve. Her hand brushed against his, almost by accident, but he didn't pull away. Not even for a second. You shouldn't be here, he said softly, voice low and dangerous. I told you, Elena said, trying to sound braver than she felt. I want to understand your world. He exhaled sharply, jaw tightening. You think curiosity protects you? Before she could answer, a black SUV screeched to a stop nearby. 2 men in dark coats jumped out, moving faster than humanly possible. Luca! Elena gasped. He didn't hesitate. One movement, swift, precise, terrifying, placed himself between her and the threat. A gunshot cracked the night. Elena ducked instinctively, her back pressing against his chest. His arms wrapped around her, solid, protective, every inch the man she'd leaned toward months ago, now her shield against real danger. They've been watching you, Luca growled, voice low, deadly. From the moment you walked into my life. Elena's heart lurched. Watching me? Why? What do they want? Because they know, he said, eyes scanning the dark streets, that anyone close to me is valuable and vulnerable. A sudden movement caught her eye. Another gunshot. One of the attackers lunged toward her. Luca reacted instantly. He grabbed her, pushing her to the ground, using his body as a shield. Bullets ricocheted nearby. Sparks flew. Elena felt the heat of danger radiating off him, felt his hands pressing her down, felt the controlled power in his every movement. "You stay behind me," he commanded, voice tight with controlled fury. "Do not move, not until I say." She obeyed, pressed against him, breath hitching as adrenaline surged. The closeness was suffocating and intoxicating. Every instinct screamed fear, but every nerve burned with the memory of their kiss. Luca moved like a storm, swift and precise, disarming threats, deflecting blows, never once letting a bullet or a hand reach her. "Why?" Elena whispered, heart pounding, eyes wide. "Why do you care so much?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled her closer, wrapping her in his arms as he crouched behind a low wall, eyes still scanning, muscles tense and ready. "Because," he said finally, voice rough, intimate, almost breaking through the chaos, "I don't ever want to lose you. Not to them, not to anyone." Her chest tightened, pulse racing. She had wanted danger, curiosity, closeness, but she hadn't expected the intensity of this truth, that he risked everything for her. A shadow moved at the corner of her vision. Another attacker? Luca shifted instantly, moving to cover her again. Elena realized, terrified and exhilarated, that she had crossed a line. She wasn't just involved anymore. She was part of his world, and in this world, she was a target. But with him protecting her, she felt a pulse of certainty. Whatever came next, she wasn't alone. And for the first time, she understood the weight of his promise. She had been taken, not by fear, not by force, but by love. And Luca Moretti would let no one take her from him. The rain hammered the streets like a warning. Elena's hands were trembling, pressed against Luca's chest as he guided her through the maze of dark alleyways. Every shadow seemed to breathe danger. Every distant footstep made her pulse spike. "They're not done," Luca growled, his jaw tight, eyes scanning the night. His usual calm, controlled demeanor was gone, replaced by something raw, predatory. The man Elena had leaned into, had kissed, was now a storm. Elena clung to him instinctively, her cheek against his shoulder, feeling the tense cord of muscles beneath her palm. "Luca, what are you going to do?" she asked, voice trembling. He didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to. His entire body spoke the truth. He was ready to annihilate anyone who threatened her. "Stay behind me," he snapped, voice low, deadly. "I'll handle this." She nodded, heart hammering, but curiosity, the dangerous kind, forced her to peek around. His arm. The sight made her stomach drop. 2 men, the same ones from before, were closing in, guns raised. Their eyes were cold, merciless, but Luca's presence was like fire. His every movement became fluid, unstoppable, an unleashed force honed by years of fear and blood. Elena's breath caught as he moved. 1 second, he was standing between her and danger. The next, a swift kick, a shove, a bullet deflected, each action precise, brutal, and terrifyingly controlled. His dark eyes met hers for a split second, conveying everything. "I will protect you. I will destroy anyone who dares touch you." Her heart ached, not from fear this time, but from the intensity of the man she loved. He grabbed the first attacker, twisting him to the ground. Then the second man raised his gun, and without hesitation, Luca's hand shot out, knocking it aside, the force of it enough to throw the man back. Elena's fingers dug into his jacket. "Luca!" she breathed. "Stay down!" he snapped, though his gaze never left the men. "Do not move!" Everything around her was chaos. Shouts, scuffling, the sound of things breaking. But Luca was a constant, a shield, a weapon, a hurricane contained in human form. Finally, he turned toward her, chest heaving, dark eyes stormy, jaw clenched. He pressed her, against him again, arms wrapping around her as if her very survival depended on the grip. "You see now," he said, voice low, rough, barely controlled. Why I said I can't take things slowly. When it comes to protecting you, I do, she whispered, heart pounding. Her lips brushed his chest, trembling, overwhelmed. By the truth of him. I won't lose you, Luca murmured, pressing his forehead to hers. Not to them, not to anyone. The rain soaked them, plastering her hair to her face, but she didn't care. She couldn't care. All she could feel was him, the man who had kissed her slowly, who had teased, protected, and restrained himself, now unleashed, raw, dangerous, consuming. Her hands moved to his face, tracing the sharp angles she had memorized. I'm not afraid, she said, though her voice wavered. Good, he whispered, his lips brushing her hair. Because once they know who you are, you won't be safe anywhere. Elena shivered, not from fear, but from the heat of his words, the power in his presence. And in that moment, she understood fully. Luca Moretti, the devil she had leaned toward, had no mercy for anyone who dared touch her. But he had everything for her, and she would follow him, even into the darkness, because she had no choice anymore. She was his. The adrenaline from the attack still coursed through Elena's veins, leaving her hands trembling as she clutched Luca's jacket. He had led her to a safe room in one of his private safe houses, a dimly lit loft with reinforced windows, the faint hum of the city barely audible outside. She leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath, but her eyes couldn't leave him. Luca Moretti, the man everyone feared, was pacing slowly, his movements deliberate, controlled. But she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands flexed and unclenched. You're not supposed to feel safe yet, he said quietly, almost to himself. His eyes flicked toward her, dark and intense. Not until I decide it's safe. Elena stepped closer, drawn to him despite herself. Then, let me stay close, she said softly. I'm not leaving. He froze for a heartbeat, then turned fully toward her, gaze burning. You don't understand what that means. Being close to me, being this close. It changes everything. I want it to change everything, she whispered, lifting her hand slowly, letting her fingers hover near his face. I'm not afraid of you, Luca. Not anymore. His lips twitched, almost a smile. You think that's courage? He asked, voice low, rumbling. No. That's curiosity and recklessness. Maybe I like both, she replied, boldness in her tone. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. No city, no danger, no gunfire. Just the warmth radiating from him, the raw electricity of his presence. Her hand brushed against his chest, and this time, he didn't pull back. Instead, his hand came up slowly, capturing hers. Do you know what happens when walls come down? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper, tense, intimate. Elena shook her head. They fall, he said, eyes dark, smoldering, dangerous. And once they fall, there's no hiding. Not from me, not from yourself. Her fingers traced the line of his jaw, memorizing every angle. I'm ready, she whispered. Let them fall. Luca's hand lifted to her cheek, cradling it with a careful, deliberate touch. His thumb brushed her lips lightly, light enough to tease, heavy enough to promise. Her breath hitched, and her heart pounded like a drum. You don't know what you're asking, he said, voice rough, low, controlled, but failing, just a little. I do, she whispered back. He drew a slow, deliberate breath, his forehead resting against hers. Then let me show you, he murmured. And for the first time since they had met, Luca let the walls around himself slip just slightly, just enough for Elena to see the man beneath the danger, the control, and the reputation. Her lips hovered near his, every inch a question. His fingers pressed against hers, holding her, steady, and the world outside ceased to exist, until she whispered the words that would push them further than either could predict. Luca, kiss me. His eyes darkened instantly. And for the first time, Elena felt the full weight of him. Power, desire, and a promise that nothing would ever be the same. The office was silent except for the low hum of the city below. Rain streaked the windows, casting fractured reflections across the polished mahogany floor. Luca Moretti sat behind his desk, fingers steepled, jaw tight. Every shadow in the room seemed to lean toward him, whispering of power, control, and the empire he had built with blood and fear. And yet none of it mattered. Elena stood near the doorway, watching him. Her chest was still tight from their last kiss, but now the tension was sharper. Something had shifted, not just between them, but in the walls of his world. "Luca," she began softly, stepping closer. "What is it?" He didn't answer immediately. His gaze was fixed on the documents spread across his desk. Ledgers, contracts, reports of betrayal, men who had already died for stepping out of line. "They're planning," he finally said, voice low, cold, deadly. "Inside, someone I trusted, someone who would have killed anyone I care about. For power." Elena's stomach dropped. "And us?" He looked up, eyes dark, stormy. "That's the problem." She stepped closer, bold, unafraid. "Then we face them, together. You don't have to choose." Luca's jaw tightened. "I do." "You don't," she whispered, voice soft but insistent. "Love isn't weakness, not when it's worth it." He shook his head slowly, standing. The city lights reflected off the sharp angles of his face. "You don't understand," he said. "Love is weakness in my world. It's a chain, a distraction, a hole they can exploit." Elena's hand found his, lightly gripping it. He didn't pull away, but the tension in his shoulders was palpable. "Then let it be a strength," she said. "Let me be your strength. Don't let them turn us into enemies." Luca exhaled, a sound that carried both frustration and longing. He walked to the window, looking out over the city he ruled. The empire he had built with iron and fire waited behind him, a throne made of fear and obedience. And now, for the first time, the choice before him wasn't about power. It was about her. "Do you understand what I have to give up?" he asked, voice low, almost breaking. "Everything. Control, authority, respect, my empire." "I do," Elena said. Her gaze never wavered. "And yet, you'd still choose me?" He didn't answer. He looked at her once, dark eyes softening, almost human. Then, without another word, he walked away from the desk, away from the throne that had been his life, away from the empire built on fear. Elena's heart pounded in her chest. "Luca?" He didn't turn. Not yet. Not fully. But she felt the gravity of his choice, the weight of love against power, desire against duty. The empire behind him was intact, dangerous, and waiting. But Luca Moretti had chosen something else. Her hand itched to reach for him, to pull him back, but she didn't. She knew some things had to be witnessed, not demanded. And as he disappeared into the shadows of the room, Elena realized the impossible truth. Luca Moretti had walked away from everything, for her. And that choice would change everything, for better or for worse. The room was quiet. No gunfire, no shadows moving with deadly intent, no empire to defend. Just the soft hum of the city outside, and the faint scent of rain lingering on the windows. Elena stood in the center, heart still racing, eyes scanning Luca. He was leaning casually. Against the doorway, sleeves rolled up, jaw relaxed in a way she had never seen before. No menace, no predator, just him. She swallowed, her hands lightly brushing together. After everything, the danger, the chaos, the teasing, the restraint, this moment felt impossibly fragile. "You're finally calm," she whispered, stepping closer. He tilted his head, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I promised you slow," he said, softly. "And you've earned it." Elena's pulse skipped. "Slow?" she repeated, heart pounding. You mean, finally? His eyes softened as he took a step toward her. Yes, finally. She felt it then, the magnetism between them, strong and undeniable. And yet, unlike before, there was no urgency, no chaos, just the two of them, measured breaths, the weight of everything they had survived pressing down softly, intimately. He raised a hand, cupping her cheek, fingers warm and steady. Her lips parted instinctively. His thumb brushed her lower lip, slow, teasing, deliberate. The heat of him, restrained yet utterly consuming, made her knees weak. I've waited for this, she whispered, voice shaking. For you. For this moment. And I've restrained myself, he murmured. His dark eyes softened as he leaned in, lips barely brushing hers. Because you deserved it. Because we deserved it. Their lips met, slow, intentional, full of promise. Not rushed, not reckless. Every movement spoke of desire restrained and earned, of fire held back just long enough to make the release. Unforgettable. Elena's hands moved to his chest, tracing the solid line of him. He responded by wrapping her in his arms, pulling her close, lips moving against hers with patient fire, igniting every nerve, every memory, every moment they had shared leading up to this. It was everything. The danger, the longing, the teasing, the restraint, all culminating in this kiss, a declaration, a claim, a promise. When they finally pulled back, breaths mingling, eyes locked, the world seemed impossibly still. I told you we'd start slow, Luca said, voice low, velvet dark, yet tender. Elena smiled, heart full, chest heaving. Forever is faster, he added. And in that quiet, rain-drenched room, with no threat to interrupt them, Elena knew it was true. Everything had led to this, and for the first time she wasn't afraid. She was home, with him. You've just experienced Elena and Luca's story. A world of danger, desire, and the slow burn of a love that changes everything. But their journey isn't over, and neither is ours. If your heart raced with every near kiss, every whispered secret, every stolen moment, don't let the story end here. Subscribe now and join us for every twist, every danger, every heartbeat of this dark cinematic romance. Because with Luca and Elena, the next chapter is always closer than you think.